Welcome to the Reaction Channel. Briefly, what is this channel? It's a channel where I react to stuff. Sometimes I'll react to typical stuff like content creators with their videos and their entertainment. Sometimes I'll react to other things. I'm going to react today to two passages that are important to me. And just a little bit about this. So, a lot of these content creators, when they're reacting to something, usually it's a video. They watched that video before they started reacting to it, right? No, they did. Of course they did. And then they pretend to be seeing it for the first time. And sometimes they don't explicitly say that, but now, for me, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to capture that type of spontaneity, unless I decide to, in which case I'll tell you, but not for now. All right. So, I want to react to two passages that are, again, important to me. The first is the very beginning of the book, Introduction to Metaphysics by Martin Heidegger. Here we go. So I'm just going to read it. Right? Chapter 1, the fundamental question of metaphysics. Why are there beings at all instead of nothing? That is the question. Presumably, it is no arbitrary question. Why are there beings at all instead of nothing? This is obviously the first of all questions. Of course, this is not the first question in the chronological sense. Individuals, as well as peoples, ask many questions in the course of their historical passage through time. They explore, investigate, and test many sorts of things before they run into the question, why are there beings at all instead of nothingness? Or nothing, sorry. Many never run into this question at all, if running into the question means not only hearing and reading the interrogative sentence as uttered, but asking the question, that is, taking a stand on it, posing it, compelling oneself into the state of this questioning. And yet we are each touched once, maybe even now and then, by the concealed power of this question, without properly grasping what is happening to us. In great despair, for example, when all weight tends to dwindle away from things and the sense of things grows dark, the question looms. Perhaps it strikes only once, like the muffled tolling of a bell that resounds into Dasein. Don't worry about what that is, just think about our experience. We'll call it our experience. And gradually fades away. The question is there in heartfelt joy, for then all things are transformed and surround us, as if for the first time, as it were easier to grasp that they were not, rather than that they are, and are as they are. The question is there in a spell of boredom, when we are equally distant from despair and joy, but when the stubborn ordinariness of beings lays open a wasteland in which it makes no difference to us whether beings are or not. And then, in a distinctive form, the question resonates once again. Why are there beings at all instead of nothing? I'll talk more about this after reading the next passage to you. When we think of beings, we're not just talking about like beings that are alive, like human beings, right? This could also be things like ideas, rocks, items, whatever you want to call it, beings. The multifarious, divided matter and ideas of existence, right? Beings. Why are there beings at all instead of nothing? Okay, now let's go to the next piece. It's called, oh great, The Top. There it is, by Franz Kafka. If you know me, you know that I love me some Franz Kafka. All right, I'm going to read it to you. The Top. A certain philosopher used to hang about wherever children were at play. And whenever he saw a boy with a top, let me pause here. You know what a top is? You may not, because I don't know if nowadays everybody has a tablet or, Xbox. But a top gets like circular and then it comes to a point and you spin it. And then it keeps spinning. And that's the cool part of it. It's a toy. Yeah. All right, so the top. A certain philosopher used to hang about wherever children were at play. And whenever he saw a boy with a top, he would lie in wait. As soon as the top began to spin, the philosopher went in pursuit and tried to catch it. He was not perturbed when the children noisily protested and tried to keep him away from their toy. So long as he could catch the top while it was still spinning, he was happy, but only for a moment. Then he threw it to the ground and walked away. For he believed that the understanding of any detail, that of a spinning top, for instance, was sufficient for the understanding of all things. For this reason, he did not busy himself with great problems. It seemed to him uneconomical. Once the smallest detail was understood, then everything was understood, which was why he busied himself only with the spinning top. And whenever preparations were being made for the spinning of the top, he hoped that this time it would succeed. As soon as the top began to spin and he was running breathlessly after it, the hope would turn to certainty. And when he held the silly piece of wood in his hand, he felt nauseated. The screaming of the children, which hitherto he had not heard and which now suddenly pierced his ears, chased him away, and he tottered like a top under a clumsy whip. Okay, those are the two. All right, now those two, you may have grasped, have some relation to each other. In one, the first one, we're talking about a question that has some weight to it. Why are there beings instead of nothingness or nothing? Whereas we have the furthest extreme with our guy here, the philosopher in Kafka, who believes that sufficiently understanding any detail is either equivalent to or as good as understanding everything. Now, here's something, and I'm just gonna kind of riff on this a little bit, if you don't mind. So, the first thing that occurs to me is, well, let me get more general. No, more specific. Right. Any line of inquiry, be it scientific or otherwise, or any pursuit, is potentially infinite. Let me explain. Let's talk about science, right? In science, whatever you're studying, let's say, quantum physics, right? You keep uncovering layers of truth. You uncover you have one question, which perhaps gives you an answer, but also will give you more questions, right? Endless questions that go forever, right? So, in the sense, we can understand how he could become confused, because the infinity of truth in one direction, in one line of inquiry, can continue forever. The questions stop when you stop asking them. They don't have a natural end where I can no longer ask any questions about this detail or any meaningful questions about this phenomenon or thing. They'll go forever, right? They're infinite in one direction, just as we live in what would seem to be an infinite universe. And it is indeed an infinite universe in our minds, because our understanding of it will always be insufficient and incomplete. Always. Doesn't matter how much we learn. It will always be incomplete, and I would even say vastly incomplete, right? Okay. So, yeah, he is an absurd figure, right? He's doing so. He's making a fool of himself. It's for us to kind of laugh at. But I think a lot of people are doing that. I think a lot of people are chasing that top, and it works in other ways too. Pursuit of wealth, beauty, power, those things go forever. There's always potentially more power you could have. There's always potentially more beauty you could possess or display. You could always have more prestige. Those are endless, right? They only stop when we become exhausted and don't seek them anymore. It's not because there's a natural end to any of them. Enough is whatever we decide enough is, or whatever we're capable of. But there's always that further step. All right. Now, let's go back to Heidegger. Why are there beings at all instead of nothingness? Now, if you're a religious person, I am a religious person, but I don't want to go into that right now. You can just give a pat answer to this. You can say, God is the reason that there are beings instead of nothingness. It was about 7 days. I made some of this, made some of that, took out a rib and made a lady. and there were some animals and mountains and stuff, and then he rested on the seventh day. Okay, all right, but that's kind of a pat answer, kind of a simplistic answer to a question that perhaps deserves a little bit more of our time. That it deserves more investment from us than a simple, quick answer. Oh, God did it. Okay, even if you believe that God did do it, for a minute, let's suspend that belief. Part of the absurdity of the second character, the guy who is, well, the only character we talked about, the guy with the top, is that instead of thinking about isness, about there being beings, there being being itself, and that being miraculous and amazing, instead he is narrowed completely to a being, small b, a thing, in this case a top, and that's where he fixates, right? And of course he never gets the success he wants and is frustrated, right? If on the other hand, he could approach that top and whatever else he does, having come from the larger question, having come just from uttering it, you don't have to have an answer to it. Just utter the question: why are there beings instead of nothing? Utter the question and really let it sink in. If you can, it's hard to conceive of nothing, right? But nothing isn't just no life. Nothing is no rocks, no matter, no dark matter, no energy. Nothing is nothing. It is the absence of being, right? Why isn't there non-being? Why isn't there nothingness? What you're going to come away with is a real appreciation for the fact that you get to be alive, that you get to experience the unfolding of time, that there are stories you hear, right? And the stories continue, right? They keep going. That, there are works of art, that there are things that you must do to live, to survive, right? Which is a fairly short period of time in the scheme of things. I think the guy with the top, if he had really asked that question, Heidegger's question, and let it sink into his bones, it would have been a lot happier, though his behavior may not have changed. He might still go after that top, right? He might still believe that in the understanding of any detail comes the understanding of everything, right? They're both infinite. One's infinite in one direction, one's infinite in all directions, but infinity is infinity, right? Are not all infinities equivalent? No, of course they aren't. But that's hard to wrap your brain around. But he could approach it with more reserve, more understanding of his own absurd situation. And then he has humor, and then he has joy, right? Instead, he's just going through, focused on what's in front of him. What really kind of has always bothered me about folks, and me living with folks, is they're quick to accept that their reality is reality, right? This is what is done. This is what we do. You'll excuse me, my family's here. I'm trying to think of an example. All right, I'll give you an example. You go to school, right? And you're born, and they send you off to school, and you sit in your desk, and they teach you these things that they teach you with mathematics and language and reading and science and all that. And then you have these grades, right, that you go through. You know how many people just do that and they don't think like, wait, why am I here? Why am I here instead of out foraging, right? Why is this the way things are done? Never occurs to them to ask. And they just kind of go through it, right? To my eyes, in kind of a haze or a daze. And hey, maybe that makes them happy ultimately. Or maybe they're just kind of dim-witted. I don't know. But it's annoying to me. Anytime that you accept that our given reality is just, well, obviously that's what it is, right? No. I mean, hey, if you think about nuclear war, it could happen tomorrow. Every living thing disappears, although there would still be being itself. There would still be beings. We just wouldn't be there to perceive them. It's a big deal to exist. It's a big deal. So don't just dismiss it, right? And when you're going after that top and spinning it, laugh at yourself as you see kind of the vanity and the impossibility of satisfaction in that endeavor, right? I think that is the proper way to live. There you go. That's the first video here in this series. I will react to other things later, poems, books, passages, videos, video games, whatever. Sayonara.